Is there such a thing as having to like something on principle? Meaning, culturally, some story, some plot is so important that you have to like it. Even if you don't like it, you have to like it anyway. Let's talk about that. Hey there, this is Perch. You might be going, what is he talking about? Well, I'll give you an example. Uh, g- uh, right, almost 2 years ago now, not quite that, about a year and a half ago, I had the weirdest moment on social media. It was one of those things where you have these things you remember where you kind of get the idea. Oh wow, everybody's insane. This is one of those moments. I was on Twitter, and um, there's a discussion going on about Ghostbusters the comic, and Kelly Thompson was writing the comic, and she's discussing it with some people. And I came in and said, "Hey, just to let you know, I think that Ghostbusters, the comic, which was the all-female cast of Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters, the comic, is actually does a good job of giving these characters more personality, making them more three-dimensional. That was something the movie, I think the comic actually did a better job of fleshing out these characters than the movie." And I meant it. This was an honest comment. I didn't say, "Hey, this is the best comic of all time," 'cause it wasn't, or any of the rest. It was an observation on my part that, as people are speculating, why did this movie bomb? It bombed because the jokes are terrible. By and large, it was a comedy. But be that as it may, um, as people are speculating on all this, I made a comment. One thing about comics that's true is comics have more space and more breathing room, more ability to get into the characters and what are they thinking, how are they acting, what are they, all this kind of stuff. You have a chance to show flashbacks. You don't have budgets in terms of special effects. You can do all kinds of things in comics that you can't do in the movies. And so I was, acknowledging the point of, some of these movies. I think the original way I got onto it was, some of these movies that are untested or unproven might benefit from some prequels that are done in comics to really kind of give people a glimpse of the character, particularly for sci-fi pop culture things. And so I wrote this, hey, hats off to the comic. It actually does a good job of kind of describing these characters in a way that the movie didn't. Now, what would you expect the response to be? If you were guessing the response was, "Hey, thanks, glad you liked it," you would be wrong. If you're expecting the response to be, um, you know, anything sane or rational, you would be wrong. The response that I got from the artist and the writer and the fan, who kind of wandered in out of nowhere, was, "Screw you, misogynist. Stop attacking the movie. Stop attacking women. Why are you attacking women?" And I had to read this multiple times to even understand what in the F the person was talking about. And the logic was, too many people are insulting the movie. The movie is fabulous. The comic is fabulous. Everything is fabulous. It is all great. Any criticism will not be tolerated about any of these things. They are all wonderful and amazing, period. That was the point of view, the only point of view that was acceptable. And if you think I'm exaggerating about that bit, that was actually verbatim what the what the writer and the fan said was, "We do not accept, we reject any criticism about the movie. Too many people are criticizing the movie. Um, the comic is perfect and the movie is perfect. The end." In fact, I think full stop. So I think what it said, full stop. Everything is perfect. And I remember kind of walking away from that going, I back away kind of slowly. You probably search all this stuff in there. And I'm like, I'm not saying the movie was bad. It was, but I'm not talking about anything to do with the movie. I'm not saying women can't be in movies, none of that kind of stuff, because it, of course, went there. I'm simply saying the comic can flesh out the characters in a way the movie can't. And it was nice to see the characters who are pretty one dimensional in the movie be written in a three dimensional way in the comic. Backing away slowly now, crazy people. And then the fan and like two of the people continued to go like, screw you, man. And the writer, Kelly Thompson, was kind of a little bit more like well, a lot of people just, like to bash the movie. So you understand why we're on edge here. And I remember, I think, writing late, I'm like, I don't understand why you're on edge other than you are clearly out of your mind. But it begs the question I started here with is, are there topics, and I'll spoiler it, I think the answer is no. But are there topics, are there comics, are there movies, is there music that is so culturally important that it is above criticism? Like for example, this isn't my example, but if somebody had cancer, terrible, life-threatening cancer, going to die, but somehow miraculously, in the final hours of their life, um, did a pop song, like created a pop song, and it went viral, and somehow the fact that it went viral um, saved this person's life, and they kept living. But the song was awful. The song was it sounded like a cat being murdered in a bathtub with lobsters. It was just the worst song ever. Could, because the singer had cancer, because it was a life or death situation, can you say, well, glad the person lived, but the song was terrible? Or do you have to just say, you know what, everything is perfect because perfect? It's kind of the same kind of, that was maybe a terrible analogy, but the same kind of example goes with your kids. If you have a child and your child brings to you a drawing that looks like a fire truck with whiskers, this is the Maddox, I can draw better than your kids bit. If you've never seen this, I mean, Maddox kind of went on to be weird on social media, but if you can go back in time 20 years and look at his I can draw better than your kids stuff, it was hilarious back in the day. But if your kid gives you a drawing that is absolutely terrible, do you tell your kid, you are an amazing artist, you are the best in the world, nobody can draw better than you? Or do you say, wow, this is great, lots of love to you? I mean, you don't go to your kid and just say you suck. Maybe you do, but I don't think that's not the answer. But where does honesty sit? And are some things or some topics or some events, so sensitive, so important, so critical to our society that you can't criticize them, you can only praise? I can't, I don't think so. I think that you should be true to yourself and what you like, and what's good and what's bad, and what is honest. I think honesty, what is it? Honesty is preferable to lies. I, I just, I think it is. So, and certainly Ghostbusters, the remake, is not an example of, it's not like Ghostbusters was the first movie ever to feature women. Like, and it's, this is kind of the irritation I have with, that I think a lot of people had with Captain Marvel. Is, as a movie, it was kind of a benign Marvel movie. It was a Marvel movie. There you go. But it was billed and hyped as the movie, as you know, this is the first female superhero movie in the history of all movies. So you have to love it. You cannot criticize it because it's such a brave and heroic thing that this movie exists. And eh, one, Wonder Woman had been out a year earlier. Two, it's not like Brie Larson did this movie for free and in protest of Hollywood's practice of never hiring women for anything. There have been female actresses before. It has happened before. This is not the first time women are allowed to wear pants and film a movie and vote. This was, things have progressed. I think that's kind of and maybe this is just a fact of the current generation needs to have their firsts. It's very, very important. If you read all the kind of articles and analysis about pop culture and our generations and how things are, this generation really craves to have discoveries and firsts and inventions. And so there's a desire to almost kind of erase the past so they can have their firsts. It's kind of another step to the We're not going to give a winner or loser to the soccer game for kids. Everybody gets a gold medal. Now it's like, hey, you know what? Your little baby took their first steps, and you are the first baby ever to take steps. So you're a hero. I think that there's some aspect to that. Where this gets into comics, I think that there are good stories, there are bad stories, but I'm disheartened a little bit when I see press releases of finally a female writer gets to write a comic book. It's like, what are you talking about? There are amazing female creators, writers of comics for years and years and years and years and years. Louise Simonson had epic runs on mini comics, and what are we doing here? I think that's what it comes down to. I don't know. I just think that it's important that the work is judged on its own, and that we don't give certain work a free pass just because it's somehow deemed more important than the other work. I think that just sets us up into a bad cycle. I think it causes us to forget our past. I think our past is important, and we ought to hold on to it. And I think there have been a lot of brave, cool, important things that have happened in the past, and we're lesser as a society if we drop those. That's just what I think. What do you think? Leave me a comment below. What do you think of this whole topic? And has this ever impacted you? Love to know what you think. Otherwise, like, subscribe, notify, follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thank you for listening.